羊毛福利来了！视频下有主流交易所注册链接，永久返用，赠送 USDT 和代币，福利加起来是不少美金呢，都是免费拿的。羊毛薅起来吧，加起来挺多钱呢。
To be able to build a successful company, you really have to have a strong conviction. You really have to believe in a strong worldview. And hopefully that's a bit earlier than what other people realize. So I think I got lucky. We got lucky. We got into Bitcoin early, right? So, this is the third time we did a podcast, I think. So like in 2013, 2014, I came across Bitcoin. I was like, wow, this technology is going to be bigger than the internet, right? So, and I didn't quite catch on the internet wave. So, I was just out of college and kind of in college. And then when Bitcoin came out in 2013, I was like 35. So I was like, well, I'm not going to miss this. So, I went all in, quit my job, sold my house, and got into crypto. I think having that strong conviction really helps. This is a technology for money and for anything in the future that needs proof. So anything that needs to be verified, database is great for storage of data, but it cannot be verified easily. Everybody can have their own version of a database, and you have to believe somebody to do that. So this new technology is primed at the time, primed for finance, and we're still looking at the beginning of its adoption in the financial world. So for me, it was like, this is a big technology. I'm not going to miss it. And the next one's going to come 10, 15 years later, which now we see as AI, I think. So it's like one of those three fundamental technologies that I would face in my sort of adult life. So that's kind of the mentality. I think that was important to have that kind of strong conviction, build a platform, etc. Yeah.
When you think about that worldview, you're somebody who I think has had a lot of life experience. You've moved around, you've worked at different types of companies, and it feels like being exposed to a lot of different things in your life can help you not only have empathy and kind of understand how different people view things, but also I think of intuition as kind of like your human algorithm. You're training it, and the more kind of exposure you have, the better you get at being able to identify it. Why, when you saw it, were you like, this is going to be so big? Was it the technology? Was it the price associated with it? Was it something about the market? Like what was the thing that really convinced you to say, hey, this is going to be so big?
Yeah, so I think I was very lucky to have the personal experience in living in different countries. I was born in China, grew up in Canada, went to school there, worked in Tokyo, in New York, and Shanghai. So I was like, I was pretty close to a global citizen back then. Nowadays, I'm a much more global citizen, but just that global experience, moving through different countries, changing money, moving money from like Japan to New York. I lost quite a bit on conversion rates. And then it also gives you a worldview that, a currency is, you're not limited by countries, etc. So and also I have a tech background. So I was using my own PGP, private public keys in 1998. And so I understand the encryption algorithms used by Bitcoin. And then I worked in Wall Street, like Bloomberg, Tokyo Stock Exchange systems, etc. So I have a financial tech background, which is helpful to understanding Bitcoin early. And then for me, it was really, really important to look at the community. And I like the community that I saw in 2013. So I think that combination of experiences helps me to understand this technology much earlier than other people. So I was lucky to have that type of experience that allowed me to do that. And also, I understood it enough for me to have a very strong conviction so that, I can stay in the industry. I was all in. So I think all of that helps. I think people's horizons or understanding of the world is really important. It's really important for people to have a world view instead of a country view. Yeah.
So I did a lot of research to come and talk to you. And, you and I have known each other for a while now, but I think most people know you from the professional component of this. And as I talked with people and started to learn more, you grew up in a pretty not ideal scenario in China. And I don't think I quite understood that before. Can you talk a little bit about where you grew up and what that life was like?
Yeah. So I was born in a village in like rural China. I moved from that small town to a real village before I can even remember. The place I grew up that I remember, we didn't have running water. We didn't have electricity. Even when I was in elementary school, I was studying under oil lamps with like a glass cover. So a few years later, we got a water pump that you can pump water out. And then a few years later, we got electricity. And then I moved to a small city in China, and then I moved to Canada. So that was all before when I was 12. So that's like, my life went through like, quite big changes over time. Even when I was in Vancouver, my parents were teachers when they were in China. But in Vancouver, my dad was studying as a professor, was studying to become a professor initially. So my mom, because she didn't speak English, she had to work in a sewing factory, sewing clothes, right? So she left at 7 a.m., came back around 7 p.m. It's like close to minimum wage. So we were like we're not starving, but we're kind of at the bottom tier of the society. But we never had any debt. The Chinese parents always have savings. So we went through that. I was like the second generation immigrant. So I saw how hard my parents worked to give me that opportunity to be able to have a work platform. So I think that mentality also helps. So that's why I'm relatively frugal. I don't have a lot of luxury habits, but I work really hard. So that combination also helps, I think. So that's kind of my upbringing. But I consider myself extremely lucky, going from with no running water. My mom used to have to go to a well about 300 meters away, carry 2 buckets with a bamboo stick on her shoulders to get water for the household. So going from that to where we are today is it makes you appreciate life a bit more. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting to me is I think many people would associate you and the work that you've done as kind of being on the tip of the spear of innovation, right, and technology, and so much of the success that you've had, I think, is embracing new technologies. What you're describing is a world where it sounds like there was almost no technology, right? No running water, no electricity, all this stuff. Did you know growing up that you guys didn't have a lot, or was it just, hey, everyone around me has kind of similar things, and so this is how I think everyone lives?
So when I was growing up, I just thought everyone was the same as us. I still have that mentality. I think everyone's the same as us today. So when I compare horizontally, people compare to the guy next to them, right? So in the village, everyone's the same. In fact, my parents are still teachers, so they're actually slightly above average in that village. But then when I moved to a bigger city, I was like, wow, this city is much better. When we moved to the city, that city called Hefei, it hosts one of the top universities in China. Inside the university campus, they have paved roads. They have cement roads. That was a new thing. That was like, wow, this is pretty good. This is better than the dirt roads. So I've always kind of lived on the sort of middle to bottom, I wouldn't say poverty, but middle tier. But every step up, I was like, wow, the world is much bigger. So over my lifetime, I was experiencing the world becoming bigger and bigger and better and better. So I think that also expands my mentality to accept new things. So all of us early adopters in crypto are usually early adopters. So I think that also helps a bit. But yeah, I've always viewed myself as kind of the same as everybody else, pretty much. So I never really have a superior or inferior complex. I'm not I hope I'm not overly arrogant, but also not overly pessimistic. I'm always quite optimistic in general.
What's fascinating to me is I recently watched the NBA draft, and there was a gentleman who was drafted, and he talked about that for 7 years he lived with a generator, right? They didn't have electricity. The family lived on a generator, and you could feel the emotion that was kind of overwhelming him in the moment, saying, I went from living with a generator for 7 years. My mom sacrificed so much for me to be able to, now play in the NBA. I don't know if you are good at basketball, but you have ascended to the NBA of technology, at least. Talk a little bit about your relationship with your parents, and then, have you ever had a conversation with them where they've said they're proud of you, or vice versa? You kind of had to go explain to them, like, hey, we may have an opportunity for a different lifestyle now that maybe we grew up with?
Yeah. So luckily, my relationship with both my parents are generally decent. I didn't spend a lot of time with my father. My father's always worked away from home quite a bit of his life, making a better living for us. So I spent more time with my mom. My mom didn't have huge ambitions for me. She's still extremely frugal today. She's like 83, 84 now. She still complains groceries are too expensive, stuff like that today. Right? I'm like, Mom, you can buy anything you want now. So my dad is also quite frugal. My dad, when I give my dad money once, the second time, 6 months later or a year later, I was like, Dad, do you need more money? I can give you more money. My dad always rejected it. He's like, no, I haven't spent a penny of the money you gave me last time. So I've only given my dad money once. So they still live their same life. They haven't changed at all. So they don't want to change their life. So my dad passed away two years ago. So, so yeah, I had both of them are pretty, I would say normal. So I wouldn't say I'm super close with my dad, but I think he had a lot of influence on me regardless. He's quite frugal. He's quite down to the basics. He's not a fancy guy. My mom's the same thing. So, I would say I have a pretty good relationship with both of them. Yeah.
When you moved to Canada, your parents obviously bring you there. You're 12 years old. What do you remember about that experience? And Canada, coming from America, we kind of look at Canada as like our little brother sometimes. I know they don't like that, but that's the joke at least. But it is a very Western, and as close to an American experience as you can get, not being in America. So that's got to be jarring, I assume, going from China, especially from a village, to maybe a little bit bigger city, then all of a sudden jumping to Canada, which is fairly developed.
Yeah. That was a really nice experience. For example, when I landed, my dad had a friend who had a car to pick us up from the airport, right? For me, that was a big thing. I've never sat in a private car in my life before that. In China, you just don't have private cars. I took buses and stuff, but never in a private car. And a few days later, my dad took me to buy a $400 Canadian fourth-hand used car. I was thrilled. I was like, wow, we have our own car. And then the life in Canada is really good. I think generally the life quality in Canada is quite good. It's safe. There's grass. You play with your friends. The school's really good. The school's not that taxing. They're not that high pressure. School's relatively easy. I had time to study English, etc. But overall, just the whole system is just really good. So I had a fantastic teenager years in Canada, and also college years. So which I'm still very thankful. I developed a lot of good habits in terms of playing sports. I played a lot of volleyball in high school. I played 15 hours a week. It's basically 3 hours a day. I was captain for the school volleyball team 4 out of the 6 years. So the later 4 years, grade 8, grade 9, I wasn't. But from grade 9, the second half, I was so I played a lot of volleyball. I did okay in academics. So I had a great relationship with all my teachers in high school. We had a small high school with only, when I joined, it was only 200 students. When I graduated, it was about 400 students. So it's a small school. Everybody knew everyone else. So it was a very, I would say my teenager years are some of the best years in my life. So that really helped. So I think Canada, I still feel a lot of debt to Canada. I think it's really helped me to grow. Yeah.
One of the things that you talked about, my wife, as many people know, is from Bulgaria. And when she came from Bulgaria to the United States, she remembers that they were solving for X in Bulgaria. And she got here and the American kids were doing addition and subtraction. And she went from being the worst math student to the best math student for a period of time. I'm assuming that the Chinese education system was much more intense. What was that experience like going to, from the Chinese experience to move to Canadian?
Yeah. So my mom put both me and my sister in school 2 years early because my mom's a high school teacher. So she didn't want to deal with us at home. So she just put us in school. So when I finished grade 8 or the second grade of middle school when I was 12 in China. But when I came to Canada, they said I'm 12, so I had to go to elementary school. So I went to elementary school for 1 year and then got into grade 8 in the sort of middle school. And then I was taking grade 8 classes, but math, I was taking grade 10. So this is after 1 year delay, I was still taking grade 10 math. And then I participated in a few of the Canadian national mathematics competitions, the Fermat, Euclids, etc. Most years I was placed in the top 100. The last year I was placed the top 25 or something. So I got a couple small plaques, etc. So math is always my stronger subject. So naturally math kind of leads into programming, tech, etc. So that part is easy. English is always harder for me, naturally as a second language for me. So I also had a very good English teacher in high school. I was part of the ESL class, English as a second language class initially. Most people from those classes don't get A's in the normal English class. I got an A most of the time in the English class because the teacher liked my writing. He commented I was witty, so my vocabulary wasn't that much. But I was always kind of funny in the writing, and the teacher liked it. So I had a good relationship with him. That also instilled quite a bit of confidence for writing today, even though I know I'm not a great writer in terms of grammar, etc. I make mistakes, but just having the fun part, the wittiness, helps. So academic wise, it's a bit different. I was stronger in the sort of mathematics side of things. Yeah.
What is the story of your life from you graduate high school and then you find Bitcoin 35 years old, give or take? I don't think I really understand, where did you go? What did you do? It sounds like you went to some of the finance shops, but also you went back to Asia. Just talk us through kind of what you were doing there.
Yeah. So in my fourth year, when I was in McGill, right? So I always work every summer. So the first summer I got a software intern job. The second summer I went to the same company. The third summer I found a job in Tokyo, doing an intern. This company worked for a trading system that connects to the Tokyo Stock Exchange. So I was a junior software developer, and I developed some code, doing that. And then the fourth year, the same company gave me a job, and then we were working on a project. The project got delayed. So my manager says, "Can you extend for 1 semester to finish this project because you're now quite an integral part of this project." They didn't want to switch. So I said, fine. So I extended for 1 semester, and the project wasn't finished on time either, not because of me. But so the project extended a couple of times. I ended up never going back to McGill to finish the degree. So I actually didn't graduate from McGill. But then I stayed working in Tokyo. And then later on, I found out that without a degree, it's actually quite difficult for me to get a work visa. So I went through some online distant education to get the bachelor's degree. I transferred most of the credit, got a couple more courses, got that degree. And then I was like, well, and then I worked there for a couple of years, and then the 2000 bubble hit. So most tech stocks got dropped, and then that company I was working for got acquired by a Nasdaq listed company, but that stock wasn't doing well after the acquisition. So a bunch of people were leaving, and then I was looking for a job, and very few companies are hiring. Bloomberg was hiring in 2001. 2001. And so I interviewed with Bloomberg on the phone. We got an offer. I was going to go, and this is summer of 2001. And by September, 9/11 happened, right? So I called back to say like, well, is the job still there? They said, yeah, the job's still here. Do you still want to come? So like, yeah, I still want to come. So I went to New York on November in 2001. So that's 2 months after 9/11. The streets were pretty quiet. But you know, I went there, everything was fine. I continued to work. I worked in Bloomberg for 4 years. Bloomberg actually helped me grow quite a bit. I joined as a senior developer. But then, very quickly, I got promoted like 3 times in about 2 years. So I managed a team of, initially 60, later on 80 people, some in New York, some in Princeton, and some in London, some in Tokyo. They were working on a futures trading system. So that's like my first full on, like that's what I call my second generation trading system that I worked on. And then later on, 4 years afterwards, I got promoted 3 times in 2 years. But the last 2 years, I didn't get promoted. I look at the organization. I was the youngest manager at that level, and I was the only Asian face. Everybody else is white at that time. So I was like, well, I have to wait for somebody to retire or die to like, you know, move up to the next tier. So I started looking at entrepreneurial activities, and then there was a group of guys who were doing startups in Shanghai. I was like, okay, it's actually the same, quite a few of the senior founders in the Japan company I worked for before. They were doing a new startup in Shanghai. So I said, I'm going to join them as the youngest partner out of the 6 people. I was the only Chinese speaking guy. Everybody else is, there's 2 Americans, 2 British, and 1 Japanese guy. So the 6 of us went to Shanghai to start a new startup called Fusion Systems. That's in 2005. And then we did that. We've grown that company to four different offices: Tokyo, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Los Angeles. And the company had about 200 people. Initially we struggled for a bit, but later on we eventually became sustainable. Like, you know, we became slightly profitable. The partners are taking decent salaries, have a decent lifestyle. We did that for 8 years. So that's from 2005 to 2013. And in 2013, I came across Bitcoin. I was like, oh, okay, this is a new thing. I tried to get Fusion to do a Bitcoin payment service provider like BitPay. BitPay would, like, you know, raise $4 million in 2013. I was talking with my partners, like, we got to do like a copycat of BitPay. But the other partners are older. They didn't quite get Bitcoin back then. They said, well, no, we're not going to do it. I said, okay, well, then I'm going to leave and join the Bitcoin industry. So that's kind of how that history kind of panned out.
It's crazy to me how, in hindsight, you could always point to someone's career in terms of what were they doing, what were those details, how do they all kind of line up to each other in terms of eventually what you end up, you know, being highly successful at. But you only can do that in hindsight, right? When you go to Bloomberg or you go to Fusion, you have no clue what's the future has in store for you. So it's pretty cool. Now, you see Bitcoin. What's the first thing you do in the Bitcoin industry?
So I saw Bitcoin first. So it took me about 6 months to understand it fully, to have full conviction. I was introduced to Bitcoin in July 2013. Bitcoin was $70, right? And then by December, when I fully understood it, was like trading at 1,000, right? So that's the peak at December 2013. I was, damn, I'm really late. I got to get in this early. So I sold my apartment in like January 2014, and I got paid in tranches, right? So every tranche I get, I will buy Bitcoin. So I got paid so I bought at $800 one tranche, $600 one tranche. This is January 2014, was like kind of going down. And then by February or March, I got the last payment, and I bought like $400. So my average price is about $600 per Bitcoin. And then you went from to like 200 and 150 for stayed at 200 for about 18 months, right? So that's like 2014 to early 2015. So I basically lost 2/3 of a house as soon as I bought. And luckily, like, you know, my family is pretty supportive. And they, other than my mom's like, no, you stupid kid. Like, why did you do this? Why couldn't you like kept your original job at Bloomberg? You were making good money, et cetera, et cetera. So, but anyway, she was just nagging. She wasn't really able to do anything anyway. So, but I thought that, you know, either I was really wrong or everybody else is slightly off. So I actually thought I might just be too early. So I just head on to it. And 2016, actually I guess it was a governor of the central bank of China, Mr. Zhou Xiaochuan. He suddenly said something about blockchain in one of his speeches. And then suddenly the Chinese crypto industry became the blockchain industry. And the price started going back up. So, so it went through, that was my first winter cycle. After that, everybody in crypto, right? After you go through your first cycle, the second cycle is so much easier because the banks are much higher. Yeah, so,
100%. Now, when did you get the idea for Binance, and how much of it was kind of you sitting down to do it versus building a team initially?
Today's episode is sponsored by Figure, the largest non-bank home equity lender in the United States with over $15 billion unlocked on their lending platform. They are now in the crypto-backed loan space, and they offer industry-low interest rates when you use your Bitcoin as collateral to get cash. You can access interest rates starting at 9.9%, the lowest fixed rate in the industry at 50% LTVs. Whether you're funding a major purchase like a down payment on a home, investing in new opportunities, or even buying more Bitcoin, Figure makes it straightforward and transparent. You can go to figure.com/pomp or click on my link below to take a Bitcoin-backed loan with Figure today. I'm an investor in the company, and I have spent a lot of time trying to understand this product. And so go visit figure.com/pomp to better understand exactly what they're doing and how these rates work. You can go to figure.com/pomp today.
Yeah, so building an exchange is not a new idea. Everybody I spoke to in crypto wants to build an exchange at some point. So in 2013, we thought about building a payment system. Then we thought about building an exchange. We talked about it. I thought I didn't have quite enough experience just to build an exchange yet. So I actually joined another Chinese exchange for a bit, but things didn't work out too well there. So I left within less than a year. And then I pivoted. I tried to do a Bitcoin exchange in Japan because Mt. Gox went down in 2014. And then by 2015, I was like, well, we can do another Bitcoin exchange in Japan. I talked to a bunch of VCs trying to raise money. The VCs all suggested to me that I should become a tech provider to other exchanges, because they have invested in a bunch of exchanges in Japan. And I know how to build the systems. So, and I got a couple of guys together. We started building a system. And so we kind of pivoted from wanting to build an exchange ourselves to providing the exchange system. That company actually became quite successful. We signed up a lot of clients who want to do exchanges. Only a small number of crypto exchanges, but majority, there was another growing phenomena in China back then on the what they call stamps exchanges, cultures and stamps. That's a whole different story, but they needed systems with order book matching, etc. So we have the systems. So we actually signed up like 30 plus exchange clients. So this is a B2B business. We charge a monthly fee to the businesses, and it's actually a very steady business. But then in early 2017, the Chinese government shut most of our clients down because they don't allow that type of exchanges anymore. And then we're like, well, what are we going to do? Well, now we have a team because we're servicing 30 clients, 30 plus clients, etc. We had a team about like 25 people at that time, mostly tech guys. So, and 1 or 2 sales guys. So we said, well, let's do our own exchange now. So we kind of pivoted backwards. So the idea wasn't new. So this is what I tell entrepreneurs. Ideas are not worth the paper that they're written on, right? So it's all execution. So by 2017, we have the system. We have our own team, which I thought is a pretty high performing team. I really like that team. Well, that's still the Binance team today. So, none of them are like fancy resumes. None of them are fancy guys. All of them are like, I would say quite relatively down to earth, relatively young and junior, but they're all very good. So I thought like, no, this team's pretty good. In 2017, most of the other exchanges, still Bitcoin exchanges, Coinbase didn't even support Ethereum back then. Right. So Ethereum wasn't listed. Coinbase has Bitcoin, Litecoin, or something else. And most other exchanges were not prepared to handle ERC20 tokens. But 2017 was the sort of ICO year. Everyone was issuing ERC20 tokens. So Binance, we issued the ERC20 token ourselves. And then we started supporting all the ERC20 tokens on Ethereum. So that was a niche we caught on. And then the other guys wasn't reacting fast enough. And then we really revamped the customer service in the crypto industry. Back in 2017, if you raise a support ticket, you'll be waiting for 2 months or more if you get a reply. And this is when your Bitcoin withdrawal is stuck and you don't have it, you can't trade it, the price is moving and you're stuck there for 2 months, right? So we thought, I have had those experiences on other exchanges which are not good. And I said, okay, let's do 24-hour response longest, and then we pushed to 1 hour. So, so we built a really good product plus really good service, and then we also got lucky in the sense that we protected the users like no other exchange have done before or even since. So we got lucky in a few of those points, and then Binance grew. Yeah.
When you're going through that hyper growth, you basically brought to market something that no one else had created. You were solving a problem, right? Which is, I think anyone that I know has had any degree of success in business or been able to build any amount of wealth for themselves personally, you can always go back and say, hey, what was the thing you provided to the market that they needed? And you guys were doing that. What was it like when you were hitting that hyperscale? In 2017, was the first cycle that I went through where I was like, okay, this is going to get kind of crazy, right? This is not just a Bitcoin thing. This is, all these coins are going to keep going up. And then there was a big crash. And I got to imagine that there's some like emotions that follow price in this industry. So what was that like, in the early days of Binance?
Yeah. So that was like the first, I would say, 8 months is like surreal. It's just everything like is unexpected. Everything's like kind of hard to imagine. When we started July 14th, 2017. 6 weeks later, like a month and a half later, Chinese says, okay, the Chinese government says no more crypto exchanges in China. We're like, okay, we gotta pack up. We could shut down or we could pack up and move. Because again, this comes back to my international experience, right? So I was like, it's easy enough to move. I lived in many places outside of China. We can move. So we moved 30 people from China to Tokyo back then. So we decided like, not have a China base. So that was a bit surreal and kind of hard to imagine for most businesses. And then we didn't have any fiat channels. No banks worked with crypto exchanges, not in China, not anywhere else. So we were forced to deal with the blockchain. So Bitcoin, we were crypto to crypto exchange. So Bitcoin deposit on the blockchain, you can take to Ethereum, withdraw on the blockchain, etc. But that actually that would limit our user base to a very small number of users per country because most people are more familiar with banks. But then we found out that wait a second, with this small number, there's a small number in every country. So we were actually then we have a global platform. So then moving out is quite easy, and we saw our business grow. And then by within like 2 months, we were like the top 10 exchange. And then another 4 months later, we're the top 5. And we stuck at the top 4 for like about a month. And then by December, 5 months after we launched, I was in Tokyo. Somebody messaged me and says, congrats. I was like, well, what's going on? He's like, well, now you're the number 1 exchange. And the Bitcoin price went through the roof too. So the volume is really high. So Bitcoin went from like 3,000 at the beginning of the year to 19,000 at peak in December. I almost like on the same day that we reached number 1 in trading volume. So, and the system's crashing like crazy. I'll give you a little story, right? So our CTO, he's like, managing this whole system with all this load. Our product manager sleeps late. So he while designing the product, like designing the buttons and screens, he will monitor the community. And if there's any issues, he will call the CTO. And there's usually a lot of issues. He will call the CTO almost every night at 1, 2 a.m. And then our operations guy, like what we call the project manager, he wakes up early. And when he wakes up like at 3 or 4 a.m., he looks at the community again to make sure there's no issues. And if there are issues, he will call the CTO. And for like a month, for many months, both of them will call the CTO like the last thing they go to sleep and the first thing they wake up. So the CTO wasn't getting any sleep. When there's serious issues, I'll wake up. So it was like that kind of environment for months. And then in January 2018, we hit peaks where we were getting like 200,000 registers per hour. We got 300,000 users registering per day, and our system couldn't handle it. It's not as simple as people think that you just can't put an email and a password in the database. We had huge backlogs, right? So we couldn't stick to the 1 hour or 24-hour response. So all of that happened. And then actually in January, when the Bitcoin price went down, the market became quieter. It actually gave us a bit of breathing room. We were literally like swimming before that. So when the market went quiet, our trading volume went down, but we actually got some breathing room to rebuild. We were never really worried too much. For me, when Bitcoin was like $6,000, I was fine. I was like, this price is much higher than what we anticipated. So that would be the second cycles that we go through. So that didn't cause, from a business pricing financial perspective, we didn't feel any pressure. Binance has always been profitable since 3 months in. So every single day, yeah.
So I was going to ask, how much money do you think you made in the first year? Because it's kind of a crazy story. You launch this thing and it just takes off, right? But to what scale in the early days?
I think we made about $1 billion in profit in the first year. I think we are probably the first company to hit $1 billion in profit from startup.
And that was what, in only the first like 6 months, really, if you launched in July?
I think bulk of it is in the first 6 months or so. But the bulk of it is from months 3, 4 to like months 7, 8-ish. That's like the peak where we had the tremendous volumes. Yeah. So we did some research. There's some other company reached higher valuations faster that got acquired by Facebook. I think they reached $1 billion valuation, got acquired. But in terms of startup profitable, I think we hit $1 billion profitability the quickest.
So in the first year of operations, you hit $1 billion, which is just absurd, right? What are you thinking at that time? Are you like, wow, I'm a genius? Are you like, oh my God, this is going to go away? Like, what are the do you ever stop and you're like, that's pretty cool? Do you celebrate the $1 billion milestone?
Well, actually, I took a much more balanced mindset back then. I was like, well, this is based on Bitcoin price at today. When the Bitcoin price goes down, because we hold our profits in crypto. So we don't convert into US dollars because we believe that crypto longer term will rise higher. So there will be volatilities, but we can handle it. So I thought that we just gotta make sure that we have enough cushion to survive any downturn. So that was like in my head. It was like, no, we just want to make sure let's not get too excited right now. Let's not distribute all the earnings, and then on the next downturn we will be in the red, right? So we got to survive. So and then the price actually did went from like $20,000 to $3,000 in late 2018. So back then I also the profit number is shadowed by the amount of assets on the platform. Right. So the amount of user assets on the platform, when we had to like rearrange cold wallets, we'd be transferring billions of dollars. And the first time you do that is like really shaky. But after you do that a few times, it's like, oh, that's just a number. So you kind of, your mind gets numb to the number. It's just a number. And you look at your own wallet, you don't have that much money. So when I look at my own personal wallet, I never cashed out. So I don't have any money. So I didn't really, it was like more of a virtual number. We're in a virtual industry. So
yeah, I remember I was in New York City and I was walking, and I can't remember if it was 2018 or 2019, but all of a sudden, all over at the time Twitter, Binance gets hacked. And I remember reaching out to someone on the executive team at Binance and saying, are you guys okay? Is there anything that to do to help? And it was chaos because everyone's trying to figure out what happened, where's the money, all this stuff. Talk about that, because I think that when people hear, oh, Binance went from 0 to $1 billion in profit in the first year, everything's amazing. You guys had just as much, I think, kind of challenges and pains along the way as every other company in this industry, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that happened in May 2019. So we suffered a hack where the hacker emptied our BTC hot wallet of 7,000 BTC. So at the time, it was about $40 million. So we shut down withdrawals for a week, and then we kept trading on because we didn't want the price fluctuations to be out of sync with other changes. And then within like a couple hours from the hack, I did a live AMA. The live AMA was actually scheduled beforehand. I was going to have a monthly AMA. It was just like the next day, the next morning. So I went on it, and people analyzed my posture, my expression, saying that we had the funds to back it up. Just to give some context, back in 2019, $40 million was probably we calculated it was about a month of revenue. So it wasn't like it wasn't going to bankrupt us. But everyone was very edgy, right? So we were very nervous too. We're like, like, is that the only thing that they can take away? We were like, no. So this is always the biggest risk in crypto is security. And then I think I established with the team back then, we got to get on Twitter every 2 hours. Every 2 hours, we're going to give an update. And what we're doing, we were doing the proof of reserves. We were doing and actually looking back, that's probably a blessing in disguise. So back then, everyone was really edgy. But what's interesting though is after a week later, after we enabled withdrawals, we returned everything to normal. We saw more deposits back into the system than withdrawals. So people actually were more confident with us in how we handled the hack. So I think that was a very good lesson for me, that if you're just being very transparent, always there, and just take responsibility, deal with the issue, the security instance actually build more trust in you. So I think recently we've seen some of that as well. People who handle those instances well actually builds more credibility. But yeah, it's not an easy business. So it's just so many issues. Yeah,
we can't talk about that hack without the funds are SAFU. You're gonna have to explain where that came from.
Sure. Yeah. So I first say though. Obviously, when these things were happening, I tweet about the funds are safe, right? And then somebody, I forgot his name, a YouTuber made a YouTube video, and then he portrayed me as a Japanese guy. And in the video, he says funds are safe as a pronunciation. And then the next time when we had any kind of withdrawal pause or system updates, I adopted that. I said funds are safe, SAFU, right? And then that kind of, I was kind of embracing the meme, and then then the community kind of rallied behind it, and that became a meme. So that became very popular. So
every time I see it, it cracks me up because of that moment. All right, so you get into out of 2019, past the hack, 2020. Obviously, things kind of get crazy again coming out of COVID. Talk a little bit about now you're kind of prepared to a degree, right? You've had that breathing room. You're now building this big business. I think the world now understands, at least the people paying attention to crypto, Binance is big, Binance is successful. What happens in 2020 and 2021 that maybe is different or that you think is important?
Yeah, so 2020 was like a warm up year. I would say, like. I think in 2019, Binance launched the Binance Launchpad, like in the bottom of the winter. Like when I remember when Bitcoin was 3,000 or so, we launched Binance Launchpad, and then we rolled out a slew of features. Now we continue to revamp the system. It was like 2020 was like a warm up year. 2021 was really the explosive year. 2021, at the beginning of 2021, we had 20 million users. At the end of 2021, we had 120 million users. So we're going like 5-6x during that year. And 2021, the Bitcoin price went to like 60,000, right? So yeah, that was again a high pressure year, but that time we were much better prepared. The team's bigger. We're still struggling here and there. We're still struggling on customer support. We're still struggling on some of the system issues, etc. But 2021, we had a bigger team. We're more mature in the industry, etc. So that was a really strong growth year where we got a lot of users, and our reputation is also kind of out there. So we're kind of no longer a new platform. So that was the main growth year in sort of as far as I can remember. Yeah.
And at some point, you guys go from, what I'll call like kind of a niche crypto product, and very quickly the number one crypto product, to eventually it's on the world stage and everyone starts showing up. And I think that I saw you in Singapore maybe in 2019, and remember you kind of being like, oh wow, this is like this is big, right? And you could just feel it. You guys had a conference in Singapore, and I just remember looking around, being like, there's a lot of people here, right? And as you get into 2020, 2021, I also think that there became a lot more scrutiny on the crypto industry, and that's when it kind of started. But no one was really doing anything about it. Obviously, as we get into 22, 23, then it felt like there was a crackdown. And so, talk a little bit as to this like explosion in 21, and then really success being met with friction from governments, not only in the United States, around the world, though, it ends up really kind of causing problems, I think, for a number of companies in the industry.
Yeah. So I think we met in January 2019, and that's when the bottom of the bear market. That's like when Bitcoin was like 3,100, but even at the bottom, like when we organized a conference, there was still quite a lot of people, right? So and then by 2021, the market was pretty hot. A couple months later, SEC filed a lawsuit against Binance US, Binance and myself. Initially, that lawsuit had accused us of fraud, saying that we moved customer money. And they actually issued a emergency freezing order, like a temporary restriction order, and that froze all the assets in the company. I gave a $250 million loan to Binance US. I couldn't get a penny back until recently, when the case is fully dismissed.
Shortly thereafter, obviously, you come under your own scrutiny from regulators, and talk through a little bit as like what happened, right? Because I think people read headlines, and frankly, even you and I know each other, and I don't even know if I know all the details in terms of like what exactly happened. What did they claim you guys did? What did you get in trouble for? What was the punishment? Just walk us through this whole situation.
Yeah, sure. So that was FTX was November 2022, right? So December 2022, people got really panicked about safety of funds on centralized exchanges. December, Binance experienced like a lot of withdrawals. In that 1 week, there were $14 billion withdrawn from the platform. On the highest day was a Wednesday, $7 billion got withdrawn from the platform. But we had and again on that Wednesday, I was having dinner with Matt Rozak, Bruce Fenton, plus Gabriel, plus Calvin Chan in Dubai, and they were like, "Wow, look at all this withdrawals from Binance! Like, why are you having drinks with us?" It was like, I'm not managing to buy withdrawals myself. So that was December. We like the platform handled $14 billion of withdrawals, no issues. And then a month later, by January 2023, the SEC lawsuit came. The SEC lawsuit was pretty much was trying to accuse us of a FTX, right? So they said, "Lucky you moved user funds, et cetera, et cetera." And the judge even said, asked them, "We have zero evidence. This is part of the court transcript, which is public." So that thing happened. And then Binance US at the time of the SEC lawsuit was about 35% of Coinbase's global trading volume. So market share wise, so it was I would probably imagine it's about 50% of Coinbase's US market share. After that lawsuit, Binance US lost their banking channels. It dropped to about 1% of Coinbase's volume. So it went from 35% to 1%. So that's how much impact that is on our business. And then after that, it became the DOJ stuff. So the DOJ came later. So the DOJ stuff, I have a plea agreement with the DOJ. I cannot say anything that violates the plea agreement. But the plea agreement basically says I agree to violation of one charge of Banking Secrecy Act. We were going to debate in court about the sentencing. I was a bit surprised that I was sentenced to jail. Because I was the first one in U.S. history to be sentenced to jail for a single violation of Banking Secrecy Act with no fraud, no prior history, nothing else really. So I was a bit surprised, but it is what it is. I voluntarily flew to the U.S. to deal with it. That outcome is a possibility that I knew, even though I thought it was a small possibility, but it happened. And then I did 4 months in jail and came out luckily okay.
So you were outside the U.S. while this was starting, and then you voluntarily flew to the U.S., which, there are many people throughout history. There's a famous story, I don't know if you know the story, of a guy named Mark Rich, who he actually invented the oil spot market. And he got in trouble, and he fled the U.S., he went to Switzerland, and he refused to ever come back, right? And he actually got pardoned at one point by Bill Clinton. And I think there's a book called The King of Oil that I read years ago, and it's just a fascinating story, right?
I read that book.
Did you read it? Okay.
I read that book like a textbook. So, I read all the books. I read quite a lot of books about people getting pardons. I read Mike Milken's book.
Witness to a Prosecution.
I read multiple books about Mike Milken, etc. So I read all of those books before I flew to the US. I read them like textbooks.
All right. So, but a big thing is in Mark Rich's case in particular, he left the United States, and I don't think he was he wasn't born in America. He'd become an American citizen. He fled, and then he stayed away. He never came back to the United States ever again. I think that there's an element of you voluntarily coming of, sure, maybe you didn't think that there was a high probability of going to jail, but you still came. And, I don't think anyone would suggest, hey, you should not come face the charges or, run or anything like that. But I do think that there's plenty of people who would do that, right? They would just say, hey, I'm not coming. And so what was like the calculation, or, you can't talk about like the conversation with your lawyers, but just like, what was that like? What were you feeling? Did you talk to friends or family or what as that was all playing out?
Today's episode is brought to you by Zappo Bank, where eligible members can unlock the power of Bitcoin without selling it. Need cash fast? With Zappo Bank's Bitcoin-backed loans, you can access 40% of your Bitcoin's value, borrowing as much as $1 million for a full year with low interest rates, zero fees, and no early repayment fees either. Now here's the best part. You keep your Bitcoin, meaning you get to watch your holdings grow as the price of Bitcoin increases. Whether you're looking to buy a house, fund your child's education, or seize an exciting investment opportunity, these loans give you the flexibility to access cash without selling your Bitcoin. Unlike traditional loans, Zappo Bank's Bitcoin-backed loans have no minimum repayments, no early repayment penalties, and the flexibility to settle your loan in USD or Bitcoin whenever it suits you. It's liquidity entirely on your terms. Zappo understands the unique needs of Bitcoin holders. That's why they have developed a product designed specifically for you. With over a decade of experience in the Bitcoin space, Zappo Bank has been a trusted partner for those looking to make the most of their Bitcoin while keeping it safe. Your Bitcoin stays safe in your vault, untouched, never lent out, and secured in a global network of military-grade bunkers with cutting-edge security technology. Head to zappobank.com/pomp to learn more. That's XAPOBANK.com/pomp. Go check them out at zappobank.com/pomp today. Today's episode is brought to you by Bitcoin IRA. Are you a crypto investor with a retirement account but don't have any crypto in your retirement account? Listen up, this is for you. Bitcoin IRA is revolutionizing the way Americans save for retirement by helping smart investors diversify their savings with access to over 75 cryptocurrencies. With world-class customer service, military-grade encryption, and a vertically integrated licensed trust company, it's no wonder more than 200,000 Americans trust Bitcoin IRA to secure their financial future. Get started, it is quick and easy. It takes just 3 minutes to open an account. Once you're set up, their team of IRA specialists will reach out to guide you through every step of the process. Whether you're transferring an IRA from a legacy bank, rolling over an old 401k, or starting fresh with a new contribution, the Bitcoin IRA team is here to help you get access to real crypto in your retirement account. And here is the best part. As a Pomp Podcast listener, you can earn up to $1,000 in rewards when you add funds to your account before tax day. Search for Bitcoin IRA in the App Store or visit bitcoinira.com/pomp to join 200,000 Americans on their journey to upgrade their retirement. That's bitcoinira.com/pomp to upgrade your retirement today.
Yeah. So it's a very difficult process. I don't know how to describe it so that people get it. It's unimaginable, I would say. Even through the process, there are multiple times where you think about the choices, right? And there will be friends or lawyers giving opinions and advices, etc. So there's all of these things going on, and you're reading books about what's happened, the type of lifestyle that Mark was going through, his office, his building, his security, all this stuff. So at multiple times you have to think about, well, okay, if I make one choice, there's a very high chance I will be living life as an international fugitive. Right, so I will have to be very careful about every border I cross, etc. And my business is going to be destroyed. On top of that, a lot of our users a lot of BNB holders will suffer. The BNB price will definitely tank. There's just going to be a lot of damage in the industry. Even the BTC price will probably get hurt. We saw like when FTX went down, BTC price got hurt pretty bad as well. So that's so there's one choice, which is okay. I can probably live a reasonable life, just holding out in a few countries. There are quite a few countries you can live in without extradition treaties to the US. But I thought, like, overall, that's not a lifestyle for me, right? That's not a running, hiding, running away from things. Avoiding is not the lifestyle that I want. I did have some trust in the US justice system. I thought, overall, regardless of all the politics, the war on crypto, Operation Choke Point, all of that stuff, that's politics. I still have a degree of confidence in the US judicial system. So I said, well, on the flip side, why go there? I probably shouldn't be, even worst case, I'll go to jail, probably shouldn't be that long. And I think that's a very small possibility. I thought a higher possibility is I have a home confinement for like 6 months or 12 months or so. So at least then I would personally still be safe. I wouldn't be like without the inmates. I thought that's an outcome I can deal with. And also that's a reasonable outcome, which says, look, either just probation. Right. So I already resigned from Binance as the CEO. I already paid a huge fine. The company paid an even bigger fine. I thought all of that would suffice. So it was a difficult calculation, but I thought it's much more responsible for me to take it head on and address it and deal with it and deal with whatever outcome, instead of being a sort of a runner, avoiding things.
In doing this, I heard a story that you missed the birth of one of your children dealing with all this. Is that true?
No. I didn't miss a birth. My son was born. My latest son was born in July 2023. I flew to US November 2023. And my other son had a minor medical operation which I missed. So when I flew to the US, we didn't agree on the plea arrangements. The US, the government want to keep me in the US. The DOJ wants to keep me in the US, but they promised that they will not limit my movement in the US. So I'm free to go anywhere in the US, but they don't want me to leave the country. We, of course, argued, like I paid $150 million bail. And I had 3 other friends putting up their houses, to a bond for bail for me. We argued that I should be, and I flew in voluntarily to plead guilty. It'd be worse if I plead guilty and don't show up for sentencing. Like that's crazy, right? If you don't want to come, you don't plead. You just fight. So the first judge, the magistrate judge, said I can leave. But then the government appealed the bail hearing, which is unheard of. But what's even more unheard of is the judge actually sided with the government and said, okay, I have to stay in the US. So I flew there with like a small suitcase of a couple of change of clothes. And then I had to buy clothes in the US. And then I missed one medical procedure for my slightly older son. So that's what happened. Yeah. And then
got it.
Yeah, and then I was only supposed to be there for 3 months first. Between plea and sentencing, there should only be a 3 month gap. My sentencing hearing was originally scheduled for February 23rd, 2024. In early February, on my birthday, the government requested an extension on my birthday. Right, so there's a lot of mind games that's being played. So, and of course, the court readily agreed to a 3 month extension. And I requested to leave the US. The court says no, you have to stay in the US. So I stayed for 6 months in the US, away from my family, just waiting for sentencing, and then 4 months after that. So yeah.
And so once you go to the US, you don't see your family again until you get to leave post all the sentencing stuff.
No, so I didn't. I mean, in theory, my family could visit me, but they don't have the proper visas anyway. And also, I didn't want them to come to the US and deal with other issues.
Yeah. Well, I think anyone who's got young kids and family and stuff, it's also God forbid they come, they can't leave, or there's other issues, or whatever, right? I think it's understandable. All right, so you get sentenced. My understanding is you got sentenced to 4 months in jail. Is that right?
Yep.
All right. I also read somewhere that the first cellmate that you had was a double murderer. Is that true?
Yes. Yes, that's true.
Okay, you got to tell me this story. I mean, that's pretty crazy to go from running Binance, making $1 billion in the first year. Yeah, you started off life in a pretty tough situation, but now you're in a cellmate with a double murder.
Yeah, well, on top of that, even before I got to prison, so between prison and between sentencing and going to prison, so the government, the DOJ actually asked the judge to remand me, like put me in handcuffs and take me to prison. And the judge said, look, I've shown very good behavior for the first 6 months. I didn't have any violations while I was on bail. And the judge said there's no need for supervision for me at all, which actually had some interesting implications even after sentencing. I had no parole. I was just like, wait, when I'm done, I was done. But in that, but then, for my crime, I'm a white collar crime. I should go to a minimum security prison, which most people call the camp. The camp usually, some camps don't even have fences. You can leave, but then your sentence will increase. Most people in camps were like a few months, a couple years, so they won't violate it. But because I'm not a U.S. citizen, they had to put me in a low security prison. So the low is 1 tier higher. In the low, there's mostly drug lords, and then but my first cellmate was a double murder. He was serving a 30-year sentence. He did 18 years. Because of good behavior, he got moved down to medium to a low. The low is the lowest he can go. He will never go to minimum. So, and because of my ethnicity, they grouped me by ethnicity. So they grouped the Asians together with the Pacific Islanders, together with Native Americans into one group, one car. This way, they organized by ethnicities to avoid violence. You actually, if you hang out with your people, of your same ethnicity, usually the same culture, there's less clashes. So I was sent to say, okay, this is your roommate. And the other guys, no, he's pretty chill, but you understand he's a double murderer. He killed 2 guys at once. But no, we got along just fine. He's actually quite chill. The most lethal part about him wasn't his murdering, it was his snoring. His snores were really loud. And the first night I was like, should I kick him, or because he's a double murderer, might not be a good idea. But the next morning I told him, look, bro, you know that you were snoring pretty hard. I told him in a pretty friendly way. He said, well, just not try to wake me up, or just try to kick me when I snore. So that's what I did in the future, and we got along just fine. Yeah. Now it's pretty scary. And also, before I went to prison, the Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, they all published, I'm going to be the richest person to ever go to a U.S. prison, right? And this doesn't help, right? So, I don't want to break privilege, but most people say, look, this may increase your chances of being extorted in prison, right? So luckily, the people in prison, not that many people read Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal. So yeah.
What were there any situations where you felt unsafe or people tried to extort you or anything like that?
Actually, no. I was very worried, but throughout the whole experience, I think it also has to do with how you conduct yourself. I got along with people around me pretty quickly. I got into a group, and I was a part of a group very quickly. So I don't think I showed any weakness. So I don't think I didn't see anybody try to extort me. People do try to get a better deal when you want to do something, etc. But nothing I would say are physical risks, etc. Yeah.
Now, I got to imagine if somebody is sitting in a low security prison and a very wealthy, successful person shows up, they got to ask you, what do I do with investing? How do I learn? Is there any conversation around you trying to educate them while they're on crypto or Bitcoin or any of that stuff?
Yeah. So, this inmates and their guards. So the inmates, even pretty soon, the word passed around. They figured out who I am, and then they were like, "Oh, luckily a few guys want to learn about crypto and want to learn about investing." And they were like, "Okay, well, fine." So we got books sent to the prison. So I had a little kind of study group with them. I sit down with them like for 30 minutes every day. I give them some homework to read. They ask questions, and there were like 9 TVs in the unit. They actually changed one of the TVs to like a financial channel, which is like they started looking at Bitcoin prices, etc. So which is kind of interesting. So actually that group also I felt that group also probably helped me to avoid quite a lot of trouble, because once you have a group of guys who are supporting you, you generally other people pick on you less. And then there's a group of guards that figured out who I was, and the guards asked me, "Hey, is this a good time to buy Bitcoin?" My response is pretty simple. It's like, I don't have internet here. I don't have information, so I don't even know what price it is, even though I do know because I have my friends sending me messages about just the sort of general market updates. But I just told them that, and I said, "Look, I don't have information. I can't give you any advice. I wouldn't know." But the guards mostly took it pretty well. So far, I think I did not see any major violence in prison. There were some fights, but not related to me. So I think mostly the U.S. prison system, at least the minimum security that I was in, I didn't see any major violence.
Now, we talked about Mark Rich, which it's hilarious that you read that book, and I love that you said you studied it like a textbook. Michael Milken. There's many examples of people who were either accused of, convicted of, or even put in jail, who have been pardoned. I think that we have seen the existing administration pardon a number of people. Some of them have drug offenses or things that I think are considered more kind of non-white collar. And then we've also seen a number of white collar criminals who have been pardoned as well. My understanding is that there's an entire process here, but is that something that you're trying to get approved? What is that process like? Kind of walk us through, your thoughts on this idea of a pardon.
Yeah, so I think I don't know that process that well, but as any felon, everyone wouldn't mind a pardon, right? So, and especially in my case, I do think that there's probably some politicalness in my case, where 5 days before my sentencing, Senator Elizabeth Warren declares war on crypto again on national TV and writes a public letter to the DOJ. So again, whether that's political or not, I cannot comment. So I personally wouldn't mind. I obviously wouldn't mind a pardon. But that's a process for the lawyers. I actually don't know that process that well. I wouldn't want to comment on it too much.
Yeah.
But also, yeah.
And speaking of kind of this like idea of lawfare, right, where they're writing this stuff, how do you think through, okay, there's certain things that you're accused of. You obviously pled guilty. I think that people say, hey, there's a process that gets played out. You said earlier that you have this, confidence in the judicial system. But do you think that there was lawfare involved in the, kind of investigations and prosecutions and stuff like that?
I think on the SEC front, I think it's very clear that I can say that there's definitely lawfare there. I think the case got dismissed now with prejudice. So we can see that this new administration are much more reasonable in terms of how to regulate the market. I think they understand the nuances of being a new technology, new industry, etc., and the balance between encouraging innovation versus protecting, at the same time protecting consumers. So I think we've seen that attitude difference. And also. Not so much on my case, but if you look at our President Trump, so I thought he was like a prime target for lawfare and for political target too. Like when I was in prison, right? So I got into prison in the end of May. By July, I saw, President Trump went to Nashville to attend the Bitcoin conference. I was like, wow, this is cool. And then he declared he's pro crypto. And then, I think it was Kamala Harris that also declared she was pro crypto. It's like, wait a second, I'm still in jail here less than 2 months. And now the government's pro crypto now. So, and also I read the President Trump's charges. He got a criminal charge for bringing some documents to his bathroom to read. I mean, like, that's crazy, right? If my employee did that, I would give them a bonus. Right, then the guy takes it like some confidential company papers, reading in his bathroom. The guy's working really hard, right? So the guys literally have zero other time to using every minute of his time to read stuff. So I thought that was a bit extreme as well. I think there's the last administration was against crypto. I think that was pretty clear. With Elizabeth Warren, declaring war on crypto multiple times. With Gary Gensler initiating lawsuits, etc. And now we see that this new administration is much more friendlier to crypto and have a much deeper understanding on finance and technology. So again, the definition of lawfare is very subjective. I wouldn't comment on it too strongly, but I do think there's probably some elements of it.
If I was president for a day, I would pardon you.
That counts for absolutely zero, but that's what I would do.
All right, before I let you go, let's talk about kind of the future, right? Obviously, you are one of the most successful entrepreneurs of our generation. Actually, you know what a question people want to know? How much money do you have? Are you allowed to say? But they want to know how successful are you? And I think wealth is like a quantitative measurement. Are you able to say anything publicly about that?
I know I have enough money to live. I also have enough money to do stuff. So anything I want to do, I have enough money to. Money is an enabler for you to be able to do what you think you need to do. That are, in my case, it's not so much playing golf and all this stuff. That stuff is, I can handle that. But if I want to do a business that helps people or that that have positive impact, I have enough resources. So money is no longer the limiting resource. It's other things. It's talent. It's people. It's health. Time. All of those things are limited resources. So I'm much more focused on those things instead of the money power. Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense. If you ever want to take Binance public, feel free to call me. I'm sure there's a lot of people who'd be interested in that. All right, talk to me about where's this all going, right? So obviously, Bitcoin was kind of your first love in this industry. You've built, the leading exchange. Where do you think that as an industry this goes now, especially since governments around the world are supporting it? It seems like there's, hundreds of millions of people who are signing up to adopt these assets.
Yeah, I think right now we're extremely bullish, right? With U.S., the world's largest, most powerful government adopting, pushing crypto. Now we're seeing you launched a BTC Treasury public company. That's fantastic. So I think we're going to see a lot more institutional adoption, both on the ETFs, on the public treasuries, BTC treasuries. A couple companies launched BNB treasuries, the Ethereum treasuries. There's a whole bunch of. So I think we're going to see the traditional equity markets coming into crypto in a big way. We're going to see a lot more innovation in terms. I think there's going to be an intersection between AI. Well, there is an intersection between AI and blockchain. I think that's only going to get bigger. And I think I'm also seeing a lot of governments adopting blockchain for government solutions, like decentralized IDs, land title rights, healthcare benefits, welfare distributions, taxes. All of that stuff is happening too. So I think we're finally seeing blockchain expanding beyond just a trading or finance single dimension kind of thing. Now it's going to a multi-dimension thing. So I think all of those things are happening, and all of those things are really, really good. So I think I actually didn't expect. If you asked me this like 9 months ago, I would not have said this. Like we will be in this kind of environment. But this also speaks volumes to the government structure, where the elections can change. Can bring in new ideas and innovative leading ideas very quickly. So I think with US leading, the rest of the world will follow on the policies. And we would love to help the US to become the capital of crypto. We would like to contribute, but right now we're limited in some ways. So we hope to be able to contribute more in the future.
But it's kind of crazy, right? Like you guys are the biggest crypto exchange in the world. You're not in the United States.
We want to be. And also, when we look at the market, right, the US exchanges charge about 10 to 20x of these fees. What we charge. Everything else in the world you buy them cheaper from the US. Like I use Amazon, right? Everything else you buy on Amazon is cheaper in the US. It ships faster. It's anything you do, it's cheaper in the US. Hamburgers are cheaper in the US. So, but it's only in crypto that the US consumers pay a much higher price right now, and you have a much more limited product offering. And we would love to contribute, but there are regulations in place, so we need to go step by step. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it seems like if you guys want to be in the United States, this administration wants to be the crypto capital of the world, then maybe there's something to be done there.
We would love to be part of the contribution to help to make that happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, CZ, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know that you've had a ton of success in the business world, and people are always excited about kind of your thoughts. But it's pretty fascinating to hear, I think, a story of somebody who, growing up without electricity and running water to eventually becoming, one of the best entrepreneurs, one of the wealthiest people in the world is one of those stories that as this plays out, it's almost out of a fairy tale. right? Where every person who has success, they have some obstacles along the way, and whether it's Binance being hacked, obviously the legal situation, etc. One thing I think I've always admired about you is just keep chugging along, right? And you kind of deal with it and keep pushing forward.
Absolutely. So I think we're just onwards, right? So we got to put in this word or simulation that I call it. We got dealt with a hand putting in a situation. We just got to do the best we can. We just got to keep moving forward. And also, I want to thank you so much for all your support along the years. And we've never really spent that much time in person, but I've always respected what you have done, how much you've contributed to the industry, and always also be a level-headed voice in this industry and also in America overall. So I really appreciate everything you've done. So yeah, looking forward to do more together and onwards.
Sounds good. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Tom.